Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Stand. Today, of course, is um, Wednesday, September the today is September Wednesday, September the 10th, 2025. So before we do get started with the usual spiel and stuff, let me kind of address the elephant in the room, as it were, particularly for those of us in the United States. So earlier today, during an event at Utah Valley University, American American conservative commentator and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, passed away at the age of 31. He was shot and killed um, as he was preparing to start his event. Um, Normally, we don't normally here on the mic stand. We don't do a lot of like hard politics just because of how divisive it can be. Um, we don't, as you guys know, I tend to cover more, pop culture, particularly niche pop culture, anime, cartoons, comic, manga, pro wrestling. But, this is something that I know a lot of people are going to, it's one of those things a lot of people are going to have their minds on. So, so today, what we're going to do, of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in too. So today, instead of doing per se a news article, as it were, I'm going to do a profile piece. Just something to kind of get us away from the like doom and gloom and kind of. I know a lot of people are going to be mourning, particularly his family. Our condolences, of course, go out to the Kirk family. Um, I'll even do a moment of silence here in a moment, but keep his family in your thoughts and prayers if you can. That'd be appreciated as well. Um, but tonight we're going to do a little profile piece. Going to look back at the history of Barney Bear and the MGM shorts. But again, and then of course we'll do the resident wrap up and the this day in each history. But before we do get to all that, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. His untimely and unfortunate passing here at the age of 31. Um, so, all right. All right. With that being done and said, I just ask that you guys keep your thoughts and prayers. You know, keep his family in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this difficult time. So, with that being said, now let's kind of move on to something a little brighter here. Um, for those of you looking to kind of get away from the doom and gloom and the morning and all that. Do something a little bit more positive, kind of remind everybody of one of the first cartoon bears in history to grace our screens, Barney Bear, who of course who had a career spanning from 1939 to 1954 with shorts that were produced by MGM. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into that. And let me go pull that up. And again, a friendly reminder to everybody on um, both my YouTube and Rumble sites. If you guys haven't already, of course, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. I know we're getting into it a little earlier than usual, but I just figured just get right into things here. All right, so we're gonna look at the history of Barney Bear here. Barney Bear is an American series of animated cartoon short subjects produced by MGM Cartoons. The title character is an anthropomorphic cartoon character, a sluggish, sleepy bear who often is in pursuit of nothing except for peace and quiet. 26 cartoons were produced between 1939 and 1954, so 15 years, so about a cartoon and a half, basically. Of course, some of the more basic information directed over the years, including Rudolph Ising, George Gordon, Preston Bear, Michael Law, Dick Lundy, William Hanna. Hanna and Barbera did the supervision only. Stories written by Ising, Heck Allen, and produced by Rudolph Ising from 1939 to 1943. Fred Quimby from, of course, 1939 to 1954. Because the people who would provide the voices for him would include, of course, Rudolph Ising, Pinto Colvig, William Hanna, Frank Bingham, Paul Frio. So, anyways, with that being said, let's get into his history here. And again, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, history. The character was created for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer by director Rudolph Ising, who based the bear's grumpy yet pleasant disposition on his own and derived many of his mannerisms from the screen actor Wallace Beery. The character was voiced by Rudolph Ising from 1939 to 1943. Pinto Colvig, 1941. Now, Pinto Colvig was the first voice of Goofy. He also did Bluto from, I believe it was 1939 to 1942, or 1940. Let's see, Billy Bletcher from 1944 to 49. Paul Frees from 52 to 50 until 54. Frank Welker in 1980. Lou Scheimer in 1980. Now, Lou Scheimer, that's when Filmation was doing, I think, the Tom and Jerry show. Jeff Bergman in 2004 and Richard McGonigal 2012 and 13. Barney Bear made his first appearance in The Bear That Couldn't Sleep in 1939. And by 1941 was the star of his own series, getting an Oscar nomination for his fourth cartoon, 1941 short, The Rookie Bear. Ising left the studio in 1943. 3 additional cartoons were produced and directed by George Gordon before he too left in 1945. Let's see if anybody's got anything to say. Again, go to both my Rumble and YouTube viewers. If you guys haven't yet, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as we continue on here, Ising's original Barney design contained a plethora of detailed, shaggy fur wrinkled clothing and 6 eyebrows. Wow. As the series progressed, the design was gradually simplified and streamlined, reaching its peak in the late 1940s shorts. The only output of the short-lived directorial team of Preston Blair and Michael Law. Law and Blair's cartoons had a direction much more closer to cartoons by Hanna-Barbera and Tex Avery, but worked as animators in parentheses, and Lau ultimately as co-director, in parentheses, on several of Avery's pictures. The last original Barney Bear cartoons were released between 1952 and 1954, directed by ex-Disney Lance animator, ex-Disney as in Walt Disney, and Lance as in Walter Lance, who gave us Woody Woodpecker, animator Dick Lundy. Lundy and Avery's unit, or Lundy used Avery's unit to produce these cartoons, while the latter was taking a 1-year sabbatical from the studio. In the films from the late 1940s and early 1950s, Barney's design was streamlined and simplified, much the same as those of Tom and Jerry. Remember, at least in the early days in the 40s, 40s and into, obviously Barney Bear and Tom and Jerry were more or less peers, right? They were so. All right, so just reminded everybody we did mention the whole thing about Charlie Kirk's passing. I'm just bringing you something a little lighter in tone tonight, just to because I know a lot of people will be doing a lot more things, a lot more serious stuff on other platforms. But if you want a kind of a break from the morning and the dark side of things, feel free to stay here and get a little history lesson on Barney Bear. In the 1941 cartoon The Prospecting Bear, Barney is paired with a donkey named Benny, or named Benny Burrow. Though Benny would only make 2 further cartoon appearances, he would later feature as Barney's partner in numerous comic book stories. In the 1944 Avery cartoon Screwball Squirrel, Barney Bear is mentioned by Sammy Squirrel as he talks to Screwy Squirrel at the beginning. Kind of the idea of breaking the fourth wall, the aside, as it were. Barney Bear would not appear in new material again until Filmation's The Tom and Jerry Comedy Show in 1980. More recently, Barney Bear appeared in the direct-to-video films Tom and Jerry, Robin Hood and His Merry Mouse in 2012, and Tom and Jerry's Giant Adventure in 2013. Giant Adventure once again paired Barney with Benny Burrow. Barney also made cameo appearances in Tom and Jerry Meet Sherlock Holmes in 2010 and Tom and Jerry Back to Oz in 2016. All right, as we continue on here. Plot. The series begins with the title character, Barney Bear, usually trying to accomplish a task in his series. He can be a bit lazy, but not too lazy, but he tends to overdo or do his task the wrong way. He also has a hard time going to sleep. But when he finally does go to sleep, he is a heavy sleeper. Mostly he doesn't talk, but sometimes he does. At times he was paired with Benny Burrow, a curious donkey who accompanies him on several occasions, but mostly when he's in the West. In parentheses, Benny never spoke, but he did in the comic books, unquote. Now, I guess there was some controversy with Barney Bear. Let's read a little bit about this. Like many animated cartoons from the 1930s to the early 1950s, Barney Bear featured racial stereotypes after explosions For example, characters with blasted faces would resemble stereotypical blacks, with large lips, bow-tied hair, and speaking in black vernacular. One popular cartoon, The Little Wisecracker, when the duck kite hit the electricity cables and Barney's face turned black because of electricity, he rocked the duckling, also in blackface, and saying, "Shorten and bread." Cartoon Network and Boomerang would usually omit these scenes on re-airings. Now, mind you, though, even here's the thing about that too. It would be kind of more of a natural thing to happen that your face would get blackened, from getting an electric shock like that, because basically it's burning your skin, right? It's kind of burning your skin, it's charring your skin. So, sometimes when you cook something, you cook it too long and it does blacken, it chars, right? So, now granted, I know probably because of the maybe because of the attitudes of the period, maybe people were more accepting of the blackface humor. We of course do not accept it now in modern times. But remember, these were cartoons, these were products of their time. So to like complain about them, 7-8 decades after the fact is kind of ridiculous, But anyways, let's see. So and then of course we'll look at some of the filmography, of course, including Barney's very first appearance in Bear That Couldn't Sleep, that came out on June 10th, 1939. The Rookie Bear that they talked about was the Oscar nominee. All these were directed and produced by, of course, Rudolph Ising and co-produced with Fred Quimby. May 17, 1941. Let's see. Fred Bingham narrated Barney Bear's Victory Garden. Now, of course, the Victory Garden that came out in late 1942. Victory Gardens were basically where people would grow vegetables in their garden for the war effort, right? Were called Victory Gardens because the idea of cultivating, fruits and vegetables to help spur on the American troops to victory. See, The Unwelcome Guest, which came out on February 17th, 1945, with George Gordon and Michael Law doing the directing, with Fred Quimby doing. Although Gordon is often cited as the director, Law claimed to have also directed this cartoon. In The Bear and the Bean by Preston Blair and Michael Law from 1948. So, wow, 3 years in between. This was also supervised by William Hanna and Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera. And the very last Barney Bear cartoon was Bird Brain Bird Dog. Home media. A selection of Barney Bear cartoons have been released on VHS tapes and Happy Harmony's cartoon classic Laserdisc by MGM UA Home Video in the 1980s and 90s. The following cartoons can be found as extras on DVDs and Blu-rays of classic Warner Home Video films of the period. The Fishing Bear is on the DVD and Blu-ray of Pride and Prejudice. Rookie Bear on Lady Be Good. Bob Wilderness is on Dewberry Was a Lady. 30 Seconds Over Tokyo would have Bear Raid Warden. Unwelcome Guest was Easy to Wed. You find The Bear and the Hare on an Island with You, albeit with fake stereo sound, according to this guy. Barney's Hungry Cousin on Blu-ray on Kiss Me Kate, Cobbs and Robbers on the DVD of Easy to Love, albeit with fake stereo sound, and The Impossible Possum is on the Blu-ray of Lily. 2017, most of Barney Bear shorts were released on the Boomerang streaming app. I do need to step away for a moment, but when I get back, we'll look at some of the comic book adaptations of Barney Bear. But I do need to step away for a moment. I'll be right back. But I will put some music on while I'm gone to help keep you guys kind of entertained. And I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, friendly reminder, of course, to everybody, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So as we continue on with this article here, so as was the case with many of the Golden Age cartoons, there would be some companies that would come out with comic book adaptations, most notably Dell Comics here. So Barney Bear began appearing in comic books in 1942. Dell Comics licensed various MGM characters, including Barney Bear. He appeared in backup stories and Arging Comics, 1942 to 1949, starting in the first issue, and then from 1949 in Tom and Jerry comics, later just Tom and Jerry, and its spin-offs from Our Gang being like the Little Rascals, as we all know them, number 11 to 36, 1944 to 1947. Carl Barks took over the writing and drawing of the series. Barks regularly teamed Barney up with Benny Burrow. Later, the obnoxious neighbor, Mooseface McElk, try saying that 3 times fast, was also introduced. Mooseface was created for Barks by Western publishing colleague Gil Turner, who wrote and drew the Barney stories for several years after Barks' run ended. Later, post-Turner talents introduced other characters, including Benny's nephews Fuzzy and Wuzzy. Fuzzy and Wuzzy Donkey, okay. Or Fuzzy and Wuzzy Burrow. All right. Um, another artist who worked on Barney Bear was Lynn Karp. 2011, Yoei Books issued a hardback volume collecting Carl Barks' work on the series. And then now here are, of course, some of the list of the comics that Barney, of course, appeared in. So, Our Gang Comics, 1947 from Dell. Our Gang with Tom and Jerry, 1949 from Dell. Barney Bear Concert, he got his own in 1949 from Magazine Management Australia. So Australia gave him his own comic books here. From Rosenook, Australia in 1950, Barney Bear's Bumper Book of Comics. Woody Woodpecker Back to School by Dell, 1952. So he was even put into well, yeah, Dell also did of course, got hold of the Universal licenses as well. Tom and Jerry Winter Carnival, 1952. MGM's Tom and Jerry Winter Fun number 3, 4, and 5 in 1954, 55, 56, number 6, and 57. MGM's The Mouse Musketeers. Again, all these, more or less, unless otherwise noted, all these pretty much were by Dell, looks like. Tom and Jerry's Summer Fun, MGM Tom and Jerry's Winter Fun number 7, 1958. Tom and Jerry Picnic Time, 1958. 1962, Tom and Jerry Comics. Then when Gold Key took over for Dell, Golden Comics Digest, 1970. TV Comic Annual from Polystyle, 1975. Tom and Jerry Winter Special, 1977. Polystyle again did a holiday special, 1978. Tom and Jerry Holiday Special. Gold Key in 1979. Tom and Jerry, 1979. Edison Effin. Banks Bear Book, 1979. Tom and Jerry Julejefe from Sumic Internationals. I'm guessing, and then that must be a foreign language book. 87. Tex Avery's Wolf and Red number 1 from Dark Horse Comics in 1995. Appearance as a plush toy bear. And Carl Barks' Big Book of Barney Bear, 2011 by IDW. Alrighty then. Well, there we go with Barney Bear. You see what time it is. I might see if there might be a chance. Let's see. And let me take a quick peek. See if maybe, just maybe, there might be a little shorty we can find. We're thinking about going over to it's the same one. Yeah, All right, so yeah, it looks like. And again, if anything is crossing your mind in the realm of anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling, don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, so I think I will. Let me go through a little bit more detailed here, see if there's. Of course, this coming Monday, um, coming to, of course, MeTV Tunes, will be the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. Okay. Right there. And around. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I'm trying to keep it light. There's this article on that Park Place. Apparently, a DC Comics writer is deciding to mock Charlie Kirk. Unfortunately, but I don't even want to. I don't even want to give that person any notoriety here. So, um, yeah. So, anyways. All right, so I think I'm going to move on to the wrestling wrap up then. Um, all right, so we'll take a look back at last night's NXT as well as look ahead to tonight's Dynamite. As on last night's NXT, coming from, of course, the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, on the CW with Booker T and Vic Joseph on commentary. The opening match saw Josh Briggs defeat Javon Evans in 12:45. Um, in the other semifinal match to determine the number one contender to the WWE Women's Speed title, Laney Reed defeated Triple A's Fabi Apache. Of course, now Laney Reed moves on to face Candice LeRae to determine who will next challenge Sol Ruca for the WWE Women's Championship. Osiris Griffin and Dion Lennox of Dark State, with of course Cutler James, and Saquon Sugars in their corner, retain the WWE NXT tag title over Hank and Tank Ledger, and Hank Walker in what I believe was probably Hank and Tank's contractual rematch. In a non-title flag match, Devon Evans, representing the United States, defeated the current TNA North American champion Ethan Page, representing Canada. And it looks like in the main event, in a triple threat elimination match, determining the number one contender to the WWE Women's Tag Team title, the Collings, Izzy Dane, and Tatum Packley, with Sean Spears and Nico Vance in their corner. Won over Fatal Influences, Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix, with JC Jane in their corner, and Sol Ruca and Zarya. So you had a lot of championship gold. Now, also, one of the other things I kind of heard too is like last night was their homecoming event. So a number of current WWE stars who were at one time members of the NXT roster, namely like Sandra Kerr, Tiffany Stratton, they would make their return to the show to help celebrate the homecoming. So now let's get ready to talk about what to look forward to. And as I did say yesterday, of course, it does look like the WrestlePalooza card. Maybe I think the only match that hasn't been signed that they believe will be signed by this Friday will probably be for the WWE title. Cody Rhodes will be defending against Drew McIntyre, or even in a triple threat match with Randy Orton involved too there. So, anyways, so let's take a look at what's going down on tonight's Dynamite as they continue to build towards Toronto and their event up there. Let me see. All Out. So, coming from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, PA, for those of you who don't know what 2300 Arena is, that's the old ECW arena. Of course, and I believe, of course, Bryan Danielson is already slated to be on commentary for that. But in a non-title match, AEW World Heavyweight Champion Hangman Adam Page takes on the challenge of Josh Alexander in a women's tag team match. TBS champion Mercedes Moné teams with Emi Sakura to take on Alex Windsor and Riho, the former AEW World Women's Champion. Shelton Benjamin of the Hurt Syndicate takes on Ricochet in a battle of two guys familiar with each other from their time in WWE together. In a non-title Philly street fight, AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm looks to fend off the challenge of Sky Blue. And in a $500,000 10-man tag team match, AEW World Tag Team Champions Brodito of Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito and Brody King team up with the AEW World Trios Champions, the Ops of Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata to take on the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta, and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. So that's all we got for wrestling wrap up. As Let me see. So, coming up, what we do know from the upcoming cards, I guess I can go over that real quick here. Let me. So coming up on Sunday, September 20th, WWE will be holding its WrestlePalooza card from Indianapolis, Indiana. So they find more of these specific. And this was scheduled, of course, after as kind of a counter program to AEW. This premium live event will come from the Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana, on ESPN. This will be the first WWE pay-per-view premium live event on ESPN. They're trying to make it out to be more like a WrestleMania. Already signed for that match include Jay and Jimmy Uso, fending off two members of the Vision, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. In a match for the vacant WWE Women's World title, former world champion Io Sky takes on Stephanie Vaquer. In a mixed tag team match, WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins and his wife, Women's Intercontinental Champion Becky Lynch, take the challenge of CM Punk and AJ Lee. And also set for that Sunday or that Saturday is Brock Lesnar taking on John Cena as part of John Cena's retirement tour. Now, in terms of AEW's All Out pay-per-view, which is coming up on that same day, Sunday, September 20th. Okay, so, all right, yeah. Already signed for All Out, coming up on Saturday, September 20th, from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Tony Storm, after having set the matchup this past Wednesday, will be defending the AEW Women's World title against Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Tekla. In a tag team grudge match, FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely in their corner will be taking on Christian Cage and Adam Copeland. In a six-man tag action, Ricochet and the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leone will be fending off the challenge of the Hurt Syndicate of MVP Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley. Mercedes Moné defends the TBS title against Riho. In a coffin match, Jon Moxley will be taking on Darby Allin. Mark Briscoe is set to take on MJF in as of yet a stipulation match that has yet the stipulation as Mark Briscoe will be choosing it at a later date, as per MJF's speech last week. And then in the main event, Hangman Adam Page is set to defend the AEW World title against TNT champion Kyle Fletcher. So there we go with that. Just see what time it is here. All right, 44 minutes. We're coming on 45. So, all right. So now what we're going to do, of course, with today being Wednesday, of course, this is Hump Day, of course. Today being Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So, 1985. Let's see, 1985, 2005, and 1995. All right. All right. So first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago today. As on this date, 40 years ago today, as soon as I find the right buttons here. On this date, 40 years ago today, the 15th issue of Crossfire from Eclipse went on sale on this date back in 1985. The story was The Most Dangerous Man in the World, 26 pages, as written by Mark Evanier. Dan Spiegel did the art. Carrie Spiegel McCarthy did the lettering, and Joe Munoz did the coloring. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the 15th issue of Crossfire from Eclipse Comics went on sale on this date back in 1985. All right. So now, moving on to the next piece in Nietzsche history, as we move ahead to the year 1995, and in a sense, 1995 is just so nice because we're going to hit it twice, but we're going to hit it twice in kind of a unique way here. We're going to hit both our animation and anime history segments in one shot here. And I'll explain that in a moment here as soon as I bring that up. Hang up the share the screen here. So basically, on this date, 30 years ago today, premiering on UPN as part of the UPN Kids block, Saban Entertainment's Space Strikers, as well as their English adaptation of the Japanese anime Tekkaman Blade, known here as Technoman, both premiered on UPN's Kids block on this date back in 1995. Also premiering on this date back in 1995 on Cartoon Network was Cartoon Planet. So on this date, 30 years ago today, Cartoon Planet, Space Strikers, and Technoman all made their debuts on Cartoon Network and UPN respectively. And finally, as we hit the year 2005, on this date in the year 2005, of course, that was 20 years ago today, current AEW star Cassio Castagnoli teamed up with Chris Hero to defeat Necro Butcher and Tony Klein to become the new CZW Tag Team Champion. Now, CZW is Combat Zone Wrestling, hardcore wrestling promotion based out of New Jersey. So on this date, 20 years ago today, Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero defeated Necro Butcher and Tony Klein to become the new CZW Tag Team Champions. So, of course, with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. I might hit up some more harder stuff tomorrow. I ask that you please keep Charlie Kirk's family in your prayers due to the tragedy that happened earlier today. We will be back here, of course, on Sunday as well, as I'll be joined by RJ Carter as we take another trip down Comics History Lane, look back to books that went on sale in June of 1940. This week we'll be focusing in on Novelty Press. Let's see. Da 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 da. Yeah, so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow.